it was definitely something that scared me. What if we run out of money?
I'm Laura from Ontario Business Central, and this is Take the Leap. I have Justin Villeneuve with me from WVGB Law Group in Ottawa. Now, Justin, what made you decide to start your business?
It was right at the beginning of the pandemic. There was a ton of uncertainty as to whether or not lawyers would be allowed to continue working in the capacity they were. The firm that I was with had a lot of corporate clients at the time that were seeing some pretty big impacts from this. So I was asked to take a leave at that point for 2 or 3 months and then come back. And at that point, I decided to essentially take the leap and start my own company instead of going on leave.
What was something that was intimidating or scary for you when you were starting the business?
It wasn't necessarily a great time for me to start a business, so there was a lot of risk. And in addition to that, I had a very young family at home. We had a mortgage to pay. I knew that I wouldn't be making money for some time, so I leaned on my wife. Was gracious enough to okay the decision and essentially started building from there. But my biggest fear was, now that I'm at a point in my life where I've got a lot to lose, am I taking a chance, and is that chance going to pay off in the end?
And did you give yourself a time frame?
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to have that background of small business owners in my family. I always knew it was going to take time, between 3 and 5 years. They've been right about it, but the timeline was stretched fairly long.
So did you pay yourself at all while you went through the first few years?
So I started with nothing, but I had clients. I did start paying myself early enough, but I still had that choice to make after I'd settled my first big file. What do I do with this money? Do I pay myself the entire amount? Or do I reinvest in the firm? Because I could have easily went and gotten a job at that point, but instead, I reduced my income in order to bring on staff and get an actual office.
What's been some really happy days for you in your journey being an entrepreneur?
Most days are happy only because now I have the flexibility that I need to essentially be the father I want to be to my family and the husband I want to be as well. Take my daughter to a dentist appointment throughout the week. There's a bunch of stuff that I can do now that in the past I wasn't able to do. I can work from home. No one's judging me for not being in the office that day.
One thing that we notice with new entrepreneurs is that they're really afraid of taxation and how going from being employed to being self-employed flows with paying their taxation. How did you find it?
Don't be scared to hire a professional, because I can say from experience, if you hire the right person first, you're going to end up saving yourself a lot of time and headaches. With the taxation, with CRA and everything like that, it's always more difficult to play catch up than it is to set the proper base.
What made you decide to incorporate instead of doing a sole proprietorship?
So I chose to incorporate partially for liability purposes and also for some of the tax advantages that are included. Having that extra layer of a corporate veil, it just adds an additional protection. Your taxation rates are much lower on corporate income than they are on personal income. And having that flexibility to decide how much you're going to pay yourself and what type of assets you might be able to collect within the corporation is a huge benefit.
Now, did you find incorporating difficult?
Yeah, so the law society tells you what you have to put in there. And then Ontario Business Central, very easy process for me at least. So I felt very comfortable with it. I think you guys are one of the few as well that have an option for professional corporations.
What keeps you up at night being an entrepreneur?
In the beginning, right, you dip into your line of credit just a bit, and you've got to learn to be okay with that. We don't worry about that anymore, but in the beginning, it was definitely something that that scared me. What if we run out of money?
Was there ever a moment where you felt like giving up?
Was there ever a moment where I felt like giving up? The reality is there's going to be times where it feels exhausting, and taking a vacation, for instance, and stepping away from it completely is next to impossible. And that's where having good staff is huge, because you can afford to turn it off for a bit and have, no huge fires start in the background. But yeah, I think that the most important thing is, if that feeling ever comes up, make sure that you reach out to somebody. If you don't have those mentors in your immediate circle, you do your best to find them, because keeping those kind of thoughts in your head alone, it's not going to do you any favors.
If you can, describe your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, in 3 words.
Bet on yourself. The biggest thing that you realize when you own a business is you'll have all these occasions where you think it's the end of the world, and it's a huge issue that you have to overcome. But in the end, it ends up being a very small problem, and a common one in business ownership.